Hello, I'm going to review an album from Led Zeppelin now, Physical Graffiti, which came out, a double album, 24th of February 1975. And as you may know if you've watched my channel, I'm a big fan of double albums. A lot of my favourite albums of all time are double albums, like Goodbye Yellow Brick Road from Elton, Songs in the Key of Life from Stevie, Exile on Main Street from the Stones, the White Album from the Beatles. I think most major artists at one time or other in their career have put out a double album, and this was Led Zeppelin coming to the party, maybe a little bit later than most. I forgot to mention Pink Floyd, The Wall, 79, another brilliant double album. So, interesting cover. This is from an apartment building in Manhattan, and as I mentioned when I reviewed the To You Stones video, the video for Waiting on a Friend was filmed, the intro was filmed on the steps of this building, you know, when Mick is sitting with the black dudes and Keith's walking along the street. That's filmed here. Interesting window cover, kind of been cheap to make. So this comes inside it, which is the track listing, which has who wrote each track. And then you've got the two records with pictures of people, so you can insert it in the sleeve. There's various people pictured on here, like as well as the band. You've got Lee Harvey Oswald and I forget who else is on here. W.C. Fields, I think. It's on the new Swan label, which they would continue with for the rest of their career. And so this album was well received. It was number one on both sides of the Atlantic. So this building I was showing you on the front is 9698 St. Mark's Place. I'm not sure the street reference, but it's in Manhattan. Didn't actually visit it when I was in Manhattan 3 years ago. Should have gone there. It should have been part of my on my list of sites to go and see, but for some reason I either had forgotten it was the picture was taken there or whatever. Didn't get around to seeing it. But so apart from the cover, which is a very interesting cover, apparently when they recorded it, they recorded enough for 3 sides, and then decided to make up the album with outtakes from previous albums. So it's quite interesting that, for example, Houses of the Holy was recorded for that album, Houses of the Holy, and was left off because they thought it was too similar to Dancing Days and a couple of the other tracks, which they thought was stronger. So that was an unreleased album from a couple of years back. And then various other ones were left over, like Down by the Seaside and stuff. But the real highlights of this album are, in my opinion, the tracks newly recorded for the project. And the album opens very strongly. This is my CD of it, by the way. Don't have the deluxe version. Got quite a few of the deluxe CD versions, but not this one. But the album opens extremely strongly with Custard Pie. And one thinks of a comparable, just rocks off opener, pun not intended or pun intended. Rocks Off from Exile on Main Street is another brilliant opener. I think this track opens this album in similarly impressive rocking style and is a highlight. In terms of, I think it's Page and Plant who wrote most of the tracks. They'll say if it's otherwise. The Rover is another great track with brilliant chord changes. I love it. In My Time of Dying is a cover song which Dylan had done on his first album. This is a very different treatment. It's traditional, but it's credited on here as to all 4 members of the band. Maybe goes on a tad too long, 11 minutes. Side 2 opens with the Houses of the Holy track I told you about earlier, which I think, considering it's a leftover, is a pretty fine track. And then Trampled on a Foot is co-written with John Paul Jones as well as Jimmy and Robert, and features some brilliant keyboard work. And I think a lot of Led Zeppelin's finest work is when John Paul Jones is contributing keyboard alongside Jimmy's guitar. And then Kashmir is actually credited to John Bonham, Jimmy Page and Robert Plant, and is the famous one with all the strings, and is about as close as Led Zeppelin got to a, I'm not sure if you can call it commercial or a ballad. Well, they did other ballads, of course, in their career, but this was not trademark Led Zeppelin. It was a slightly different direction, and all the better for it, I think. Good track there. And then side 3 opens with my favourite track on the album, and probably my favourite Led Zeppelin track of all time, the stupendous In the Light. Again, written by John Paul Jones, Jimmy Page, Robert Plant, in that order it says here. Just thinking, is that alphabetical, perhaps? Or maybe John Paul Jones. I think his contribution is immense in either case, because he contributes the keyboards, which is so distinctive in this track. It takes a while to get going, but the build-up is brilliant. When the verse starts, the guitars come in, and then it all builds inexorably up to this keyboard section with the chords. Just gorgeous. And then Jimmy coming in with the ascending guitar line just sends the song into the stratosphere, and it's 8 minutes 46 seconds, but worth every second of it, even with the build-up, even with the ascending piano line repeated. I just think it's a masterpiece, and as I say, my favourite Led Zeppelin track. Then we got an acoustic guitar number called Bron Your Oar, written by Jimmy, which is quite nice. Down by the Seaside, slightly fillerish, but nice rocking ending to that. I like it. And then 10 Years Gone is a top-notch track, which I think Robert Plant wrote about some lost love or other, I was reading. And then side 4, well, if there is a weaker side, it probably is this one on the album. Night Flight is quite a nice opener. Not too distinctive, but not offensive, and quite enjoyable. The Wanton Song is probably the best track on the side, and a nice rocking number. Boogie with Stu is a bit of a throwaway, featuring Ian Stewart, the keyboard guy from the Stones. Then Black Country Woman, I think, was an outtake from '71. Nothing special. Sick Again, quite a nice closer, but nothing brilliant. So, you know, side 4 is a slight weak link, but I'm not going to pick holes. I'm not one of these people. I get a bit annoyed as a Beatles fan when people have a go at the White Album and say, oh, it should have been a single. I don't think this album should have been truncated. I think it is what it is. It came out, it sold, and that's the end of it. Even if not every track is quite at the same level. I think there's enough material in here to make this probably my favourite Led Zeppelin album, along with In Through the Outdoor, I like, which I know is not a lot of people's favourite, and I like Led Zepp 4. My son's got into Led Zeppelin more than me, and he'll make a case for all of the other albums, I think. But those two are my favourite. This one, Physical Graffiti, and the last one they made before John Bonham died, In Through the Outdoor. So that was Physical Graffiti, another great double album. Thanks for watching. See you next time.